Bang! A loud slap echoed through the heavy rain, like a knife cutting through the air. The old man fell face down into the mud in front of his house, the very house he had built his whole life with his calloused hands and years of hunger and sleep deprivation. His name is Obi, and the person who just slapped him is his own daughter, Kioma. The designer handbag in the young woman's hand swayed slightly with the sudden movement of her arm. Her eyes were so cold that even the rain seemed meaningless. She didn't look at her father kneeling at her feet as a human being. She looked at him as if he were an old object that needed to be discarded. This is no longer your house. From the moment you signed that document, everything here belongs to me and Amika. Get out of here before I call the police. The father trembled as he looked up. His wrinkled hands still clung to his daughter's trousers, not to hold on to the land, not to hold on to the house, but to hold on to the child he had raised his whole life. Kioma, your mother is sick. She can't stand the cold rain outside. She kicked his old cloth bag away. Don't use her to manipulate me. And at that very moment, amidst the mud, rainwater, and humiliation, a secret buried for hundreds of years beneath this house began to awaken. Hello everyone, I'm standing in Makoko, the infamous slum of Lagos, Nigeria, where every wave, every wooden house on the water, carries within it a story of survival, sacrifice, and sometimes betrayal. And today, you are about to hear a story that is not just about money, land, or the law, but about the price of betraying your own roots. A story in which a father signs a document to save his wife, but inadvertently signs his own fate as well. Meet her and an ancient secret emerges, not to reward but to judge. You will see who truly wins, who truly loses, and why. Sometimes the harshest punishment doesn't come from the court but from one's own conscience. Stay until the end of this video, because the ending of the story will make you ask yourself, if it were me, what would I choose between money and family? And if you enjoy insightful, emotionally rich stories that carry a message about life like this, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next stories. And now, let us go back in time to understand why a daughter could slap her father in the middle of a rainstorm like that. The story begins that the rain had not started that night. It began as a whisper in the wind, a faint cold breath sliding through the cracks of the old Oshodi house. Obi felt it before he heard it. His bones worn thin by decades of labor, always sensed the weather before the sky announced it. Zara was lying on the bed beside him, her chest rising and falling unevenly. Every breath sounded like a fragile thread being pulled tighter and tighter. Obi reached out and held her hand. It felt lighter than it should have. Once those hands had carried baskets heavier than a grown man could lift. Once those hands had stitched clothes through entire nights so their daughter could go to school in clean uniforms. Once those hands had held him when the mines collapsed and 3 men never came back. Now they barely had the strength to close around his fingers. "Are you cold?" he whispered. Zara smiled faintly. "No, I'm just tired." Obi nodded, though both of them knew what tired really meant. They had no money for hospitals, no money for oxygen, no money for private doctors. Only had hope. And that hope, strangely enough, now had a name. Kioma, their daughter, their miracle. 20 years ago, in the dusty red soil of Enugu, Kioma had been born screaming into the world like she already knew life was something that had to be fought for. Obi remembered holding her for the first time, her tiny fists clenched, her eyes tightly shut. Her voice strong enough to drown out the sounds of the village. "She's going to be a warrior." Zara had laughed through her tears. So they raised her like one. Obi worked in the mines until his lungs burned every night. He skipped meals so Kioma could eat meat twice a week. He sold his father's pocket watch, the only inheritance he had, so Kioma could buy her first English textbook. Zara walked for miles with heavy baskets of fabric balanced on her head, selling cloth in Lagos markets under the sun, under the rain, under everything. Her back curved early, her hands hardened early, her youth disappeared early. But Kioma grew. She grew tall, she grew beautiful, she grew brilliant. And when the scholarship letter came from England, it felt like the world itself had finally bowed to their sacrifices. Zara cried when she read it. Obi cried when he pretended he wasn't crying. They didn't celebrate with food or music. They celebrated with silence, the kind of silence that comes when a dream finally arrives and you are afraid to breathe too loudly in case it vanishes. They sent Kioma away with everything they had, And something they didn't. They sent her away with their future. At first, Kioma called every week. She talked about the cold weather, about the strange food, about the tall buildings and fast trains. Then she called every month. Then once in a while, and only when she needed something. Her accent changed, her voice changed, even her laughter changed. When she returned years later, she did not walk like someone coming home. She walked like someone visiting a place she no longer recognized. She wrinkled her nose at the smell of ogbono soup. She flinched at the sound of the old radio. She avoided sitting on wooden chairs. She avoided looking at her parents for too long. She was ashamed, and shame is a dangerous thing. It doesn't hurt the one who feels it. It hurts the ones who love them. That was when Amika appeared, arrived in a shining car, wearing a shining smile, carrying shining promises. He spoke of investments, of real estate, of dollars and futures and success. He spoke into Kioma's ears like a whispering wind that slowly pushes a flame into a wildfire. You deserve more, he told her. You were born for more. Your parents don't understand the world you live in now. And slowly, quietly, gently, Kioma began to believe him. She began to see her parents not as heroes, but as limitations, not as roots, but as chains. When Zara fell ill, it felt like fate itself had offered Emeka an opportunity, and he took it. The files, the insurance story, the Dubai lie. Kioma delivered them with shaking hands and a steady voice. Obi signed with faith. Zara watched with gratitude. Neither of them saw the knife hidden inside the paper. When the ink dried, something else dried with it. Love, trust, family. And that night, when Kioma slapped her father in the rain, it wasn't just a hand striking a face. It was a daughter striking her own past. And that is how betrayal is born, not in hatred, not in cruelty, but in the quiet moment when someone decides that love is no longer worth carrying. The rain did not stop. It thickened, fell harder, heavier, as if the sky itself was trying to wash something old and painful off the earth. Obi did not remember how long he lay in the mud. Seconds, minutes, perhaps a lifetime. His face was pressed into the cold ground, rain mixing with tears, turning the earth beneath him into a dark, formless paste. His ears rang. His cheek burned where Kioma's hand had struck him. His chest felt hollow, not from pain, but from something worse. Loss, not of a house, not of land, but of a daughter. Slowly, Obi pushed himself up. His fingers sank into the mud as he struggled to rise, every movement heavy, slow, deliberate, the way old men move when their bodies are tired, but their hearts are still fighting. That was when he felt it. A shift beneath his palm, not the softness of wet soil, but a hollow, subtle collapse. The mud beneath his hand cracked open like thin glass, revealing something darker underneath, a shadow that did not belong to the night. A breath rose from it, cold, dry, scented with something impossible. Old wood, ancient metal. Dust that had not known air for centuries. Obi froze. Zara gasped beside him. "What? What is that?" she whispered. Obi did not answer. He could not. Because in that moment, something inside him moved too. A memory. Not his, not Zara's, but something older, something that lived in blood and bone. A memory without words, a memory that felt like a calling. Obi stood, slowly, carefully, as if he were standing inside a dream that might shatter if he moved too fast. He brushed the mud aside with trembling fingers, stone smooth, deliberately shaped, slab half hidden beneath the earth. Not part of the house, older than the house, older than memory. Rain ran over it, washing away centuries of dirt. Zara clutched his arm. "Obi, this isn't right. We should go." "Where?" The front door was locked. Their bags were thrown outside. The rain was merciless. The night was empty, and now, the earth itself had opened beneath them. Obi pressed against the stone. It moved. Not easily, but it moved. With a low, ancient groan, the slab shifted aside, revealing a narrow opening descending into darkness. A staircase, carved from stone. Steep, narrow, descending into a depth that swallowed light. A cellar. Not a storage room, not a shelter. Something else. Something hidden. Something protected. Obi felt it in his bones. Zara shook her head. No, Obi, no. We don't belong down there. Obi took her hand. I think he said softly, we've always belonged there. They had nowhere else to go, so they went down. Each step was cold beneath their bare feet. Water trickled down the walls. The air thickened. Smell deepened. Dust, old wood, metal, and something faintly sweet, like dried leaves and thyme. Obi switched on the old flashlight from his pocket. Its weak beam cut into the darkness like a fragile blade. And then, the world changed. The light touched bronze, not rusted, not broken, but polished by hands long turned to dust. Reliefs covered the walls, scenes carved in metal and stone, warriors, kings, rivers, leopards, spears raised in battle. Crowns passed from one head to another. Lines of people kneeling before a throne. Obi's breath caught in his throat. This was no cellar. This was a tomb, a gallery, a memory palace carved into the earth. Zara covered her mouth with her hand. Oh my God. At the far end of the chamber stood 6 statues, life-sized bronze, perfectly still. Warriors with spears and shields. Their eyes were hollowed deep, catching the light in a way that made them seem alive. Watching. Waiting, guarding. Between them sat a stone platform. And on it, a chest. Mahogany, inlaid with ivory. Untouched by rot, untouched by time, untouched by everything. Obi felt his knees weaken, not from fear, from reverence. He knelt, not because he chose to, because something inside him told him to. He whispered a prayer in the old language his grandfather had taught him. Words he had not spoken since childhood. Words for permission. Words for humility. Words for those who walk where they are not supposed to walk. Then he opened the chest. No gold, no jewels, no money, only meaning. Inside lay a rolled piece of animal skin, bound with copper thread, and beneath it, a staff, bronze, heavy, shaped like a leopard's head, its eyes made of dark stone, its mouth slightly open, frozen mid-roar. Isora touched her chest. Obi, that symbol? My grandmother used to talk about it. Obi lifted the staff. It was warm, not cold, warm, as if it recognized his hands, as if it had been waiting. He unrolled the skin. The flashlight beam danced over strange symbols, ancient English, older script, seals. Red wax hardened like dried blood, he read aloud. Granted to the Oshodi clan, loyal protectors of the kingdom. Zara leaned closer. Obi continued. This land is sacred. No man may buy it. No woman may sell it. No child may trade it. Belongs not to the living but to the dead, the living and the unborn. His voice shook. Not from fear, from realization. This land was never ours to lose. Zara whispered, then Kioma. She didn't steal from us. Obi looked at her. She tried to steal from history. Something inside him changed then. The pain in his chest loosened. The humiliation faded. The shame evaporated. Not because what Kioma did hurt less, but because it finally made sense. This wasn't just betrayal. It was ignorance. It was blindness. It was a child thinking she could erase her roots. Obi stood straighter. He was still old, still thin, still tired. But now he was not small. He was not powerless. He was not forgotten. He was a bridge between the past and the present. A guardian awakened by loss. Zara looked at him differently now. Not as a dying man, but as a man standing in the shadow of something larger than both of them. They didn't send us here to hide from the rain, Obi said quietly. They sent us here to remember who we are. He gripped the staff. Above them, thunder rolled. Rain fell, machines waited, arrogance slept, and beneath the earth. Justice had just opened its eyes. The rain ended at dawn. It did not fade gently. It stopped like a door slamming shut. One moment the sky was screaming. The next, silence. The kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. Mist hovered above the mud, clinging to the broken ground and rusted rooftops like the breath of ghosts. Obi and Zara climbed back up the stone steps as the first gray light touched the sky. They did not speak. They did not need to. Each step upward felt like crossing a line between two worlds. Below, memory, ancestors, truth. Above, machines, greed, lies. When Obi pushed the stone slab back into place, the earth swallowed its secret once more. But it did not swallow its power. Obi held the leopard head staff tightly. He felt its weight. Not heavy. Steady. Zara wrapped her shawl around her shoulders. Her face was pale, but her eyes were clear. They stepped into the yard, and the future was waiting for them in the shape of steel. A roar cut through the morning. Not thunder. Not wind. Engines. Heavy engines. The ground vibrated. Birds scattered. From the road beyond the house came the sound of crushing weight, metal treads grinding against gravel. Then it appeared. An excavator. Yellow. Gigantic. Its arm raised high like a monster's claw. Behind it followed trucks, workers, men in helmets, men with papers, men with no faces worth remembering. And in front of them all stood Emeka, spotless, dry, shining crocodile leather boots. White shirt, sunglasses dark enough to hide his eyes. He held a megaphone like a king holds a scepter. Kioma stood beside him, her dress expensive, her makeup flawless, her arms crossed, her mouth tight. She did not look at the house. She looked at the future she thought she had bought. Demolish everything, Emeka said calmly into the megaphone. 2 hours. I want a clean site. A worker hesitated. Sir, this is a residential. I said everything. The excavator lurched forward, its bucket lifted. The metal teeth caught the morning light. The house, old, thin, tired, stood silently in front of it. Then the door opened. Slowly, not violently, not dramatically, just deliberately. Obi stepped out. The staff in his hand caught the light. Bronze glowed. Zara stood beside him, her head wrapped, her posture upright. Her hands calm. Something about them did not belong to this moment. They looked older than the machines, stronger than the money, heavier than the noise. Stop. Obi did not shout. He did not beg. He spoke. And the sound cut through the engines like a blade through cloth. Excavator driver flinched. His foot slammed the brake. The machine stopped. Emeka turned, smiled, removed his sunglasses slowly. Oh, he said, amused. The old man has found a stick. Kioma laughed softly. Dad, please don't embarrass yourself. Obi took one step forward, then another. The mud did not swallow his feet. The ground felt firm, as if it knew him. This land is not yours, Obi said calmly. Emeka chuckled. Funny because I have your signature. Kioma lifted her phone. I have the documents. Obi lifted the staff slightly. And I have history. Emeka rolled his eyes. Driver continue. The driver did not move. His hands trembled on the controls. That staff, he whispered. My grandmother told me stories about that staff. Emeka turned sharply. What nonsense is this? The driver swallowed. They say the Oshadi family were guardians of sacred land. Anyone who destroys it is cursed. Emeka laughed. Cursed? Are you 12? He stormed toward the excavator. I'll drive it myself. The crowd began to gather. Neighbors, old women, young men, children. People who had once been taught by Obi. People whose clothes Zara had stitched. People whose children had eaten at their table. They watched. They remembered. One young man stepped forward. Then another. Then another. They stood in front of the excavator, forming a line. A wall of flesh against steel. If you want to destroy this house, one of them said, you'll go through us first. Kioma's face paled. Emeka, call the police. A voice answered from behind the crowd. They're already here. A man stepped forward in a clean suit. Young, calm. Holding a file, tuned, Zara whispered. The boy they once fed, the boy they once taught, the boy they once saved. I represent the Oshadi family, Tun said, and the Ministry of Culture, Emeka sneered. You represent nothing. Tund opened the file. This land is registered as protected heritage since 1925. Emeka's smile cracked. Possible. Very possible. Police sirens sounded in the distance. Kioma grabbed Emeka's arm. You said it was clean? Emeka pulled away. You said your father was harmless. The sirens grew louder. The police arrived. The crowd parted. Documents were exchanged. Orders were read. The excavator was shut down. Emeka shouted, threatened, insulted. No one listened. Kioma stood still, watching her world collapse. Not because her parents were powerful, because her lies were fragile. Obi looked at her, not with anger, not with triumph, but with grief. "You were never my enemy," he said softly. "You were just lost." Kiyoma's eyes filled, but she did not step forward. She did not apologize. She did not run. And watched everything she built on betrayal fall apart. Because history does not forget. Our roots do not forgive easily. Not with violence, not with revenge, but with truth. And truth is heavier than steel. The courtroom in Lagos did not feel like a place for truth. It felt like a place for performance. Polished wood, high ceilings, cameras, reporters, murmurs, whispers, flashing lights. People were not there because they loved justice. They were there because they loved drama. They wanted to see wealth fall. They wanted to see blood without blood. They wanted to see who would cry first. Emeka arrived early, its tailored suit, perfect tie. A smile rehearsed so well it almost looked natural. Kiyoma arrived behind him. Her heels clicked too loudly on the marble floor. She had not slept. Her eyes were shadowed. Her hands trembled when she held her bag. She kept looking at Emeka. He did not look at her. Obi and Zara arrived quietly. No cameras followed them. No one whispered their names. But when Obi walked in, holding the leopard head staff, something changed. The room did not grow louder. It grew quieter. People stared. But because something about that symbol made their skin prickle. It did not belong in a courtroom, yet it commanded one. The judge entered. The room rose. The room sat. The battle began. Emeka's lawyer stood first. A man known for winning impossible cases. A man known for turning lies into reasonable doubt. "Your Honor," he began smoothly, "this case is simple. A father voluntarily signed over his land to his daughter and her business partner. Regret is not a crime. Changing one's mind is not a legal argument." He lifted the contract. "This is notarized. This is legal. This is final." He turned to Kiyoma. "Miss Kiyoma, did your father sign this document willingly?" Kiyoma swallowed. She looked at Obi. He did not look at her. She looked at Zara. Zara closed her eyes. Kiyoma looked back at Emeka. His gaze was sharp, cold, a warning.
Yes.
Kiyoma whispered. "He signed it willingly." A murmur rippled through the room. Zara pressed her hand to her mouth. Obi did not move. "Thank you." He turned triumphantly to the judge. Case closed. Tun stood, quiet, unimpressive, unthreatening, until he spoke. "Your Honor," he said, "we do not dispute that Mr. Obi signed a paper. We dispute what that paper was." The courtroom shifted. Tun lifted a screen, projected an image, a magnified signature. Through forensic analysis, we found that Mr. Obi's signature was placed on a blank page. Transfer details were printed later. This is not consent. This is fraud. The room stirred. Emeka's smile tightened. Tun continued. "And there is more." He held up the animal skin decree. "This land is protected heritage under Nigerian law. No transfer is valid without approval from the Ministry of Culture." A man stepped forward. Gray hair, calm eyes. "Dr. Okoro, Your Honor," he said. "We confirm this land was registered in 1925. Any transaction is void." Emeka's lawyer objected. The judge raised his hand. Objection overruled. The air thickened. Emeka stood. "This is nonsense," he shouted. "This woman tricked me." He pointed at Kiyoma. "She planned everything." Kiyoma froze. "What? You said your father was easy to deceive." "You gave me the files. You told me to scare him." We turned on each other. Betrayal, eating betrayal. The courtroom watched, silent, hungry. Ugly truths surfaced. Text messages were shown. Voice recordings played. Plans revealed. Lies stacked upon lies collapsed. The judge struck the gavel. Order, then judgment. The contract. Void. The land. Protected. Emeka. Arrested. Kiyoma sentenced to community service. The room exhaled. The drama ended, but the consequences had just begun. Kiyoma collapsed. She crawled to Obi. "Dad, please." Obi withdrew his hand. Not in anger, in sorrow. "Justice is not mine to give," he said. No, he walked away. Leaving behind a daughter is a lesson. and a world that does not forgive easily. The prison gate closed with a sound Amika would never forget. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was not violent. It was final. A thick iron door slid into place behind him, sealing off the light, the air, the world he thought he owned. The echo of that metal scraping metal traveled down the corridor like a long, hollow breath. For the first time in his life, Emeka felt small, not financially, not socially, existentially. The man who once walked through marble halls, who once ordered rooms full of people with a flick of his hand, now stood barefoot on cold concrete in a gray uniform with a number stitched onto his chest. No phone, no watch, no mirror, no assistance. Just a number and time. Lots of time. The first night he did not sleep. He lay on the thin mattress staring at the ceiling, listening to sounds he had never bothered to imagine before. Coughing, whispers, sobbing, someone screaming in their dreams, someone praying, someone laughing at nothing. The laughter disturbed him the most. It had no joy, only emptiness. In that darkness, Emeka felt something new rise inside him. Not regret, not guilt. Fear. Fear of being irrelevant. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of becoming nothing. He clenched his fists. "This is temporary," he whispered to himself. But the walls did not answer, and hope does not grow well in cement. Kiyoma's punishment did not have walls. It had sunlight. People, eyes, judgment. Every morning she put on the orange uniform, bright, unforgiving, impossible to ignore. It marked her. Not as a criminal, but as someone paying a debt. She walked to the heritage site, swept leaves, polished bronze, cleaned dust from carvings that told stories older than her mistakes. Tourists watched her. Some whispered. Some pointed. Some recognized her. She's the girl. She betrayed her parents. That's her. Kiyoma felt every word like a pebble inside her shoe. Small, constant, impossible to forget. At first, she worked with anger. She swept hard. She polished aggressively. She avoided looking at the statues, avoided reading the plaques, avoided thinking. But time is patient, and silence is persuasive. One afternoon, exhausted, she sat down beside a bronze relief. It depicted a woman kneeling before an elder, offering a bowl of water. The plaque read, "Respect is not submission, 'tis remembrance." Kiyoma stared at it for a long time. She did not know why her chest hurt. She just knew it did. That night she dreamed of her childhood home, not the big one, the small one. The one with the cracked walls and the radio and the smell of soup. She woke up crying. Obi and Zara stayed in the old house. The government offered them money, a relocation, a better place, a safer place. They refused. "This is our place," Zara said. "This is where we planted our lives." They restored the house, not into a palace, into a memory. They repaired walls, repainted symbols, turned the cellar into a museum. Children came, students came, scholars came. Obi told stories. Zara made tea. They became guardians again, not of land, of meaning. But at night Zara cried quietly, not for the house, for her daughter. Obi heard her. He always heard her. But he never tried to stop her. Some pain is not meant to be stopped, only carried. Amika tried to negotiate, tried to threaten, tried to bribe, tried to charm. None of it worked. The prison did not care who he used to be. His lawyer stopped visiting. His friends stopped calling. His accounts were frozen. His name disappeared. He began to talk to himself, to rehearse excuses no one asked for, to argue with ghosts. He hated Kiyoma, then he hated Obi, then he hated the system, then slowly, he hated himself. It was new, unwelcome, unavoidable. One night, in a moment of unbearable silence, he whispered, "I did this." The words tasted bitter, but honest. For the first time, Kiyoma worked every day. Slowly, quietly. She stopped rushing, stopped avoiding. She began reading the plaques, listening to guides, understanding the stories. She learned about guardians, about betrayal, about kings who lost everything, about daughters who destroyed dynasties, about sons who redeemed them. History stopped being abstract. It became a mirror. One afternoon, she overheard a child ask, "Why did she do something so bad?" The mother answered softly, "Because she forgot who she was." Kioma closed her eyes. "Da!" Sentence followed her home, followed her into sleep, followed her into dreams. She wrote a letter, then tore it up, wrote another, tore that too. Finally, she stopped writing and started walking. At sunset, she walked to her old house. She stood at the gate, did not knock, did not enter, just stood, watching. Obi saw her. He said nothing, placed a plate of baked goods on the stone bench, her favorite. Then he walked away. Kioma stared at the plate. Her legs trembled. She picked it up, sat on the ground, ate slowly, crying. For the first time, not because she lost something, but because she finally understood what she had destroyed. The price was not prison, it was not labor, it was not money. It was clarity, and clarity hurts more than punishment, because it leaves no one else to blame. And that is the price every betrayer must eventually pay. The cost of seeing yourself as you truly are. 3 months after the trial, the Oshadi house no longer looked like a battlefield. It looked like a place where time had decided to slow down. Terracotta walls had been cleaned and reinforced. The roof no longer leaked when it rained. The yard was swept every morning, and small flowers now grew along the stone path that led to the front door. Children came in groups with notebooks and curious eyes. Old men came with walking sticks and stories. Young people came with phones and questions. And in the center of it all sat Obi, under the old baobab tree. On a wooden chair, polished smooth by years of use, the leopard head staff rested beside him, not as a weapon, not as a symbol of power, but as a reminder. A reminder that some things are not meant to be owned. Grandfather Obi, a small boy, asked one afternoon, "Is it true that kings used to live here?" Obi smiled. "Kings lived everywhere," he said. "Some wore crowns, some wore dust, some wore kindness." The children laughed. But one girl stayed behind after the others left. She looked familiar, too familiar. Her hair was tied back simply. Her face had lost its old shine. Her eyes had gained something new. "Wait, humility, understanding, Dad," Kioma said. The word hung in the air between them. Obi looked up slowly, not surprised, not angry, just present. "Yes," she swallowed. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness." Obi nodded. "That's good." She looked relieved. "I just wanted to say thank you." "For what? For not hating me?" Obi looked at her for a long time. Then he said, "Hatred is heavy. I am too old to carry heavy things." They both smiled faintly, not happy, not sad, just honest. Kioma did not sit. She did not step closer. She simply stood. And that was enough. Zara watched from the doorway. Her heart was full and fragile at the same time. She wanted to run to her daughter, to hug her, to cry, to scold, to forgive, to undo everything. But she didn't. Because sometimes love is not movement, it is restraint. She waited. Peace grows slowly, like roots, like scars, like wisdom. Emeka was transferred to a smaller prison. No one followed the news anymore. His name faded. His story became just another file, in another world, in another time.